Well, hello everyone and welcome to the Econobox garage. Last week I got the top bows all cleaned up and painted. This week I'm going to put them to use by installing the new soft top. Thanks for joining me. I hope you enjoy this week's video. One of the things I'm going to need for the top are the front bar and the bar that goes across the back, mates with the two little hooks on the rear deck. I have the rear one, but I do not have the front one. However, contacted a local friend of mine who has a Bugeye, and he's loaned me his bar that comes in the front, and it's quite a bit lighter material than the one for the back. So what I did is I just ran over to Home Depot or to Lowe's and bought a piece of aluminum that was about $5 Canadian. It's the same width and the same thickness and just about the same length, and as you can see I bent it to match the shape of the front one. It's not much of a bend. You can see underneath there, and I was able to do that. Just by clamping it in the vise. I was able to do that by just clamping it in the vise like this, and just pulling on it a little bit at a time to get that shallow curve in it. So what I'll do is I'll just round off these ends, make them nice and smooth, and then I've got my front bar. So I have my replacement lined up with the original at one end, and you can see I've rounded off the end here just to match, and the curve matches pretty much all the way along. This is just bent a little bit, so you can see the original is a little bit longer than my replacement. I think this is 36 1/4, and the piece I got from Lowe's was 36. This isn't going to be a huge concern, as this just goes into a pocket on the front of the top, and that pocket with the metal reinforcement in it slides into the slot on the top of the windscreen. Well, now that the top bows are painted and touched up and what have you, the next thing to do is install the soft top itself. Now, the first thing in the whole process is to locate the center of the car. So I've just got some tape across here, and I'll measure between the ends of the teardrop fittings and put a mark on here, but also double check, double reference that from the beading on both sides as well. I will do the same on the roof, or pardon me, on the windshield frame, but I'm not quite sure what this hole is here for, but that might be in the middle, but I'm not going to assume anything on there. So I'll get that marked. And then on the top itself, which I have laid out on the table over here, I've got a bit of tape in the middle, and just to give me a reference point, I'm using the cutouts here for the bar as my reference point, and I'll go, so that piece of tape is marked on the point there, and this one here. So what I'll do is I'll just measure halfway between here and here to get my center point for the back. And then I've got a piece of tape on the front edge as well. So I'll just mark that. I'll just go from the end of the pockets here. They look very even on either side, and I'll just mark my center line there as well. So I'll get those marked on, then I'll put the top onto the car, and then we'll have to mark out where to install the fittings. Okay, I have the center marked at the front, and the center on the back part is basically the midway between these two marks. And then on the corresponding location on the car, it's a good job I didn't assume this hole was in the middle, as it is a little bit off. So this line here is the center line, and on the back of the car I have this line here, and that's been double checked, equidistant between the two teardrop fittings and between the beading on either side as well. So I'm confident with that. So next up, I'm going to just put the top over the top bows with the bows set back here for now, and that'll make it easier to get the front. I'll get the back bar hooked under here first, and then the top bar in the under the lip of the windshield, and then I'll pull this bow forward. And the other thing with this, you'll notice that there's a little a detent here, or how this one works is you push these top bows are spring loaded in here, so you can push this down. It won't go now because the detent's on, and you just hold it down, and then when you release this like that, this comes up. So I'm going to push that back down, and then flip it around again. Oops, not quite down there, quite far enough. A little bit of a challenge with one hand. So I'm going to hook the back in first. And again, these pockets here and here, that bar in there hooks inside the hooks under that teardrop fitting, and we'll get things lined up. I'll line that one up there. So I've got my marks lined up right there, and then that one is lined up there. That's good. I'm going to take the front and flip that over. Okay, so I've got the bar over the front, and I just have to fold it up and under the lip. Now, I wonder if I'm supposed to put the front bar in first. I'm going to go check that. Okay, I have the top in place, and I've got the front bar underneath that lip, and it is centered. And I have the back bar under those teardrop fittings, and it too is centered. You can see the marks here. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I think I'm going to start at the front. I'm going to mark where I need to put the lift dot fasteners to go in here, to go in the new top and mate with the fittings that are on the windscreen itself. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pull this into position, mark it with a piece of chalk, and then I will pull the top off. I'm going to do the fittings one at a time, I think. It's going to be a bit of a pain. I've got to pull the top off, take it over, get my hole punched where I need it, put the fitting in, and then I'll work from there. So I'll start with the two front ones, then I'll move around to the back and do the ones that go on the 10X fittings that go for these two on each side, and then the one for the twist or easy fitting or whatever you want to call it on this side. You'll also notice I've left a paper protection on the plastic windows, as I don't need to see in the car at this point, so I'll just leave that on until I have all the fittings installed. So what I'm going to do to fit this on is I'm going to make sure the bar is underneath that edge and I'm still centered. I'm going to stretch this down a bit until I get it where I think it's going to be the right spot. And then there's the fitting underneath. I'm just going to take a piece of chalk and mark where that is. Then I will take this back over to the bench, and then I'll make my holes and install the fitting on there. Okay, the type of fitting that goes on these front corners is called a lift dot. And if you look closely on here, you can see there is a little dot, and then that's where you lift the direction. It won't lift off any other way. So what I want to make sure is that dot is oriented towards the edge, so that when I go to lift it off, that will just pop off. Now this one needs a hole through the fabric of the top, and it also needs 4 little pins. You'll see these pins here. So how that works is there's a backer plate that goes on this side of the top, fits over those pins. Put it the right way around, that would help. Fits over those pins, and then those pins are bent down to hold this whole assembly to the top. So I'm going to get my hole in here centered over the chalk mark in here, and we'll go from there. So to make the hole, I just have a 3/8 or 8mm punch. So I'm going to get a block of wood underneath here, center that over the chalk mark that I made, and that will punch my hole through the material. And then I'll mark where I need to put these, get these pins through. I'll push, I might be able to push those through without making any other cuts, and then I'll get this other piece on. So here I'm just going to put a block of wood under here. Put that on top. And so again, there's my chalk mark. I'm going to center the punch over that mark. And I must admit, this is a little nerve-wracking, punching holes in a brand new top. I think I'm going to have to brace underneath here, or I might just put it on the floor and do that. Just laid some fabric on the floor. I'll drop this down, and then that gives me a solid surface to punch the hole. I'll make sure I get that in the same spot I had it before. And there, that gives me a nice round hole. Now I can get my fastener centered over that hole. I'm going to kind of push that on there so those pins mark. And then I'm going to punch a little hole with a screwdriver to match that, so basically make a slot. So now I've got my lift dot positioned on the corner there. I have the pins coming through the other side. And we'll flip that little section over. Okay, I flipped it over, and you can see where these pins are coming through the material. I'm going to take my plate that goes on the back side here, put that over, and you can see it comes through. Now I've checked another item I have that has lift dot, and these little nubs here point outwards away from the fabric. So I'm just going to do that, and now I'm just going to bend these pins over. That will clamp the whole thing to the top, and then that one's done. And I'll go do the other side. And that's how the fastener looks on the car. So I'll do the other side of at the front here, and then I'll do the other fasteners for you. Now I have the lift dot fittings on both sides at the front, and things are looking really good. And everything's still lined up in the middle. The bar is tucked up nicely in the lip of the windshield. And now I can get to work on the connectors at the back. Well, that's all the time I have for this week's episode. Thanks for joining me. If you enjoyed the video, please be sure to share it with your friends, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and don't forget that little bell icon. Click on that and you'll get notified when the next video comes out. And in that next video, we'll finish putting the top on. I'd like to say thank you to everyone who supported the channel, either by commenting, subscribing, picking up merchandise such as this t-shirt, and also hitting that super thanks button. Your support and encouragement is greatly appreciated. If you'd like to get a hold of me directly, you can do so at the email address I'll put at the bottom of the screen, and that will also be in the description below. My name is Ian. This is the Econobox Garage. We'll see you next time.